The first time Riker Vaughn looked at me like he wanted me dead, the entire campus went silent. It happened on a Friday night under stadium lights, so bright they turned everyone pale and ghost-like. Westbrook University's Fall Kickoff Festival was packed shoulder to shoulder with students wearing blue and silver jerseys, music blasting through giant speakers while food trucks lined the edge of the quad. Somewhere near the center fountain, people were chanting Riker's name like he was less of a college basketball captain and more of a celebrity visiting campus for charity. Which, honestly, wasn't that far off. Riker Vaughn was the face of Westbrook basketball. 6'4", dark hair always falling perfectly into his eyes like he walked around with his own personal wind machine. Every sports brand in America apparently wanted him. ESPN had already posted about him twice before the season even started. Girls loved him. Guys wanted to be him. Professors treated him like tuition-paying royalty. And me? I was just Noah Bennett. 21. Film major. Professional disaster. I should have stayed inside editing footage for my media class like a normal person, but my roommate Tyler insisted college memories were important and that I was one iced coffee away from becoming a haunted Victorian child. So there I was, weaving through crowds with a camera hanging from my neck, while Tyler disappeared to flirt with someone near the taco truck. I was trying very hard not to accidentally make eye contact with anyone attractive when somebody slammed into my shoulder from behind. Hard. My balance vanished instantly. The giant plastic cup in my hand flew forward in what honestly felt like cinematic slow motion. Ice, cold brew, caramel foam, straight onto Riker Vaughn's white team jacket. The music cut out in my head before it actually stopped around us. Gasps spread through the crowd like a wave. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might genuinely leave my body. Coffee dripped slowly down the front of Riker's jacket while everyone stared at me like I'd just committed a federal crime. For one horrible second, nobody moved. Riker looked down at the stain. Then he looked at me. And, God, I'd never seen eyes that cold before. Not angry exactly. Worse. Controlled. His jaw tightened slightly as caramel foam slid off the edge of his sleeve. I opened my mouth and absolutely nothing useful came out. Wow. Okay. That's horrifying. I'm so sorry. A few basketball players standing behind him snorted under their breath. One girl nearby whispered, "Oh my God, he's dead." Riker still hadn't said a word, which somehow made everything worse. He just stared at me with this unreadable expression that made my pulse stutter, like he was trying to figure something out, or trying very hard not to say something he'd regret. I scrambled for napkins from a nearby table. Seriously, I can clean it. Somebody shoved me, and my hand brushed the front of his jacket for maybe half a second before Riker caught my wrist. Not rough, not gentle either, just firm enough to stop me completely. The crowd went even quieter somehow. His fingers were warm against my skin. My brain stopped functioning immediately. Riker's gaze dropped briefly to where he was holding me before lifting back to my face. "Don't," he said quietly. That was it. One word. Low and calm, and somehow infinitely worse than yelling. He let go of my wrist a second later and stepped around me without another glance. The crowd immediately split apart for him like the Red Sea. Someone behind me muttered, "Dude, you're screwed." Another person laughed. I stood there clutching crumpled napkins while humiliation burned all the way up my neck. Tyler appeared beside me looking deeply alarmed. "Noah," he whispered, "please tell me you didn't just assault the basketball captain with coffee." "It was an accident." "Yeah, well, judging by his face, he's planning your funeral." I forced out a weak laugh, but honestly, my chest still felt weird. Because underneath the embarrassment, underneath the panic, there'd been something else in Riker's expression for a split second before he walked away. Something sharp and intense enough to make my stomach twist. Which was ridiculous. Riker Vaughn didn't think about me. People like Riker didn't notice people like me unless we spilled drinks on them in public. By the end of the night, the story had already spread across half the campus. I knew because strangers kept glancing at me in the student center the next morning. One guy literally pointed and whispered, "That's him." Like I'd become nationally wanted overnight. Tyler found an anonymous post on Westbrook Confessions titled "R.I.P. Noah Bennett." The comments were somehow worse. Bro signed his own death certificate. Riker looked ready to kill him. Somebody said Riker's insanely protective about those jackets because their team issued exclusives. Another comment simply read, "Pray for Film Boy. I'm transferring schools," I announced dramatically from the couch in our apartment. Tyler tossed popcorn at me without sympathy. "You're being dramatic. I ruined his life. You spilled coffee on fabric, Noah. You didn't assassinate his family." I groaned into a pillow. But later that night, after Tyler fell asleep and the apartment finally went quiet, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until another message appeared immediately after. Stop staring at Riker Vaughn before someone gets hurt. I stared at the screen so long my vision blurred slightly. Then another text came through. He notices every single time. By Monday morning, I had convinced myself the anonymous texts were either a prank or the beginning of my true crime documentary era. Neither option made me feel especially better. Westbrook University looked unfairly beautiful in the early fall sunlight. All red brick buildings and giant oak trees dropping leaves across the sidewalks while students hurried to class with iced coffees and sleep deprivation written across their faces. Normally, I liked mornings on campus. They felt cinematic in a low-budget indie film kind of way. But now every time somebody glanced at me, I immediately assumed they had seen the coffee incident online. Which, statistically speaking, they probably had. Tyler walked beside me carrying 2 breakfast sandwiches and absolutely no empathy. You need to stop looking like a hunted Victorian orphan, he said. You are radiating fear. I got anonymous threats. You got one anonymous threat. And then another one. Tyler shrugged. People on campus send death threats over parking spots. You will survive. I frowned down at my phone again. The last message still sat there unanswered. He notices every single time. Something about it bothered me more than the first text. Because it sounded personal. Intimate almost. Like whoever sent it had been watching Riker watching me. Which was impossible. Riker Vaughn barely acknowledged my existence unless I was ruining his varsity jacket in front of hundreds of people. I was still spiraling over that thought when my media production professor walked into class carrying a stack of folders and the kind of expression professors got right before destroying your piece. Good news, Professor Martinez announced. The athletics department finally approved collaboration projects this semester. A collective groan filled the room. Student athletes at Westbrook were treated like protected wildlife. Impossible to access. Impossible to schedule. And usually deeply uninterested in being filmed by exhausted film majors running on caffeine and denial. Professor Martinez ignored us. You will each be assigned to document one athletic program over the next 8 weeks. Practices, interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, game day coverage. Real documentary work. He started passing out folders row by row. My stomach dropped the second I saw the blue and silver basketball logo on mine. No, absolutely not. Tyler leaned over from the next desk and immediately started laughing so hard he nearly choked on his sandwich. Oh, you are cursed. I opened the folder slowly like it might explode. Westbrook men's basketball. Lead contact. Riker Vaughn. I am going to pass away, I whispered. Please do not die before midterms. Professor Martinez called without looking up. It creates paperwork. The universe clearly hated me. 30 minutes later, I stood outside the basketball arena questioning every life choice that had led me there. The building itself looked more like a professional sports facility than a college gym. Giant glass windows reflected the afternoon sun, while banners with championship titles hung above the entrance. Somewhere inside, sneakers squeaked. Against polished hardwood and whistles echoed through the hallways. I tightened my grip on my camera bag and walked in. The smell hit me first. Clean wood floors. Sweat. Sports detergent. Cold air conditioning. The kind of sharp gym scent that instantly reminded me of crowded high school bleachers and varsity jackets, and people who knew exactly who they were at 18. A manager at the front desk handed me a temporary media badge. Practice is already running, she said. Coach said stay off the court unless you want to become a human speed bump. Fantastic. The moment I stepped into the gym, the noise swallowed me whole. Basketball slammed against hardwood in steady violent rhythms while players shouted across the court under blinding white lights. Music played faintly through overhead speakers. Sneakers screeched. The entire space vibrated with energy. And right in the center of it all was Riker Vaughn. He moved differently than everyone else. That was the first thing I noticed. Smooth. Controlled. Effortless in a way that looked unfair. His dark practice jersey clung slightly to his shoulders from sweat, while teammates rotated around him like planets orbiting gravity. Every time he caught the ball, the entire court shifted instinctively toward him. Somebody beside me muttered, "There goes the future NBA lottery pick." I should have stayed invisible. That was the plan. Film quietly. Avoid eye contact. Graduate eventually. But apparently my survival instincts had left the building because the second I lifted my camera, Riker looked directly at me. Not generally in my direction. At me. My stomach flipped so hard it was embarrassing. His expression stayed unreadable for half a second before Coach Daniels blew his whistle sharply. Vaughn, he barked. Focus. Riker finally looked away. I exhaled so suddenly I nearly forgot how breathing worked. Practice continued, but something strange kept happening after that. Every single time I moved around the court filming drills, I could feel Riker noticing it. Not staring exactly. Worse, tracking. Like he was aware of where I stood every second. I nearly walked backward into a rack of basketballs trying not to overthink it. During water break, one of the players jogged over grinning. You the film guy? Unfortunately. He laughed. I am Marcus. He pointed toward the court. Captain Sunshine over there usually scares media students off by week 2, so good luck. He does not scare me. Marcus looked delighted. That is adorable. Before I could respond, another basketball rolled directly toward my feet. I bent automatically to grab it at the exact same moment someone else did. Warm fingers brushed mine. My breath caught instantly. Riker straightened slowly beside me, one massive hand still covering the basketball, while the other hovered dangerously close to my wrist. Up close, he looked even worse for my nervous system. Damp dark hair, sharp cheekbones, focused eyes that always seemed too intense for normal human interaction. You are standing too close to the baseline, he said quietly. You could get hurt. I stared at him blankly for an intelligent amount of time. Oh, incredible response, Noah. Truly revolutionary communication skills. Riker's gaze flicked briefly toward the camera strap, sliding off my shoulder before he reached out and fixed it for me. Just a quick adjustment. 2 seconds maybe. But his knuckles brushed my collarbone lightly in the process, and my entire brain short-circuited. Stay behind the line, he said again, softer this time. Then he walked away before I could respond. Marcus appeared beside me immediately, wearing the expression of a man witnessing live drama unfold. Okay, he said slowly. That was weird. What was weird? Marcus stared at me. Riker Vaughn does not touch people. By Wednesday, I had developed 3 very important survival skills. 1. Never stand near the basketball court baseline. 2. Avoid reading anonymous messages after midnight. 3. Absolutely do not look directly at Riker Vaughn when he was sweaty and focused, because apparently my nervous system could not survive it. Unfortunately, the universe kept testing me anyway. The athletics documentary assignment was already consuming my life. Every afternoon after classes, I dragged my camera equipment across campus to the arena while pretending I was emotionally stable. I was not emotionally stable. Not when Riker kept doing strange things that made no sense. Like opening doors for me without a word. Or silently moving gym bags out of my path before I tripped over them. Or somehow always appearing whenever somebody crowded me too closely during practice. It was subtle enough that I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Almost. You know he watches you, right? Marcus asked casually during Thursday practice. I nearly dropped my camera. What? Marcus bit into a protein bar with the energy of a man enjoying chaos. Riker. He nodded toward the court where Riker was stretching near the bench. He keeps checking where you are. That is literally not true. Marcus gave me a long look. Film boy. He almost ran into Coach yesterday because you walked behind him. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Maybe he is making sure I stay out of the way. Sure. Marcus said, clearly unconvinced. Practice started again before I could embarrass myself further. I moved carefully along the sidelines, filming drills while music echoed through the gym speakers. The team scrimmage got intense fast. Sneakers screeched across hardwood. Players shouted over each other. The entire gym felt electric with movement and noise. And somehow, every time I lifted my camera toward Riker, he looked directly into the lens like he knew exactly where I was standing. It should not have affected me. It absolutely did. Halfway through practice, Coach Daniels called for a break, and the players scattered toward the sidelines for water. I crouched near the bench reviewing footage when somebody suddenly dropped into the seat beside me. You making me look good at least? I looked up to find Jason Mercer grinning at me. Jason was one of the team forwards. Blonde, loud, excessively aware of his own attractiveness. The type of guy who flirted recreationally for sport. Depends, I said carefully. Do you always miss free throws this dramatically? Jason clutched his chest like I had wounded him deeply. Wow, mean. I laughed before I could stop myself. Unfortunately, that was apparently the exact moment Riker looked over from across the gym. The shift in his expression was instant. Not dramatic. Not obvious. Just this subtle hardening around his jaw that made my stomach tighten unexpectedly. Jason either did not notice or enjoyed danger, because he leaned closer with a grin. You should come to the team party Friday. I do not think your teammates want me there. I do. Before I could answer, a basketball hit the floor directly beside my feet with a violent bounce that made both of us flinch. The entire bench area went quiet for one awkward second. Riker stood 10 feet away holding another basketball under one arm. His expression was unreadable again. Mercer, he said calmly. Coach wants you. Jason blinked. Coach is literally outside taking a phone call. Now, Riker repeated. Jason stared at him for half a second before standing slowly. Okay, Captain Psycho. He walked off shaking his head while I remained frozen beside my camera equipment like a deeply anxious woodland creature. Riker stepped closer after Jason disappeared toward the locker room. Up close, he still carried that sharp, clean scent of detergent and sweat, and something colder underneath. Expensive somehow, like winter air. You should not stay after practice alone, he said quietly. I frowned immediately. Why? His eyes flicked briefly toward my phone sitting beside my camera bag. People online get weird. My pulse skipped hard enough to hurt. How do you know people are messaging me? The silence that followed stretched too long. Riker looked away first. Everybody saw the posts. That was not an answer. Before I could press further, Coach Daniels yelled for the team, and Riker stepped back immediately. But as he turned, something silver slipped briefly from beneath the collar of his hoodie. A ring hanging from a chain around his neck. Dark metal engraved with an unfamiliar crest. Not college merch. Not sports jewelry. Something older. Expensive enough to look completely out of place in a university gym. Riker noticed me staring and instantly tucked it back beneath his shirt. The movement happened fast. Defensive almost. What was that? I asked before thinking. Riker's expression closed immediately. Nothing. Then he walked away. That should have been the weirdest part of my day. It was not. Because an hour later, after practice ended and the arena emptied, I stepped outside carrying 2 camera bags and nearly walked straight into a black SUV parked illegally beside the curb. The windows were tinted dark enough to hide the inside completely. I would not have noticed it except the back passenger window lowered slightly the moment Riker exited the arena behind me. A man in a suit sat inside. Older. Sharp haircut. Earpiece visible against his collar. Definitely not somebody's dad picking them up after soccer practice. Riker stopped walking the second he saw the vehicle. Something unreadable crossed his face before he looked toward me, standing awkwardly 10 feet away. For one strange moment, tension crackled through the cold evening air so sharply I could actually feel it. Then the suited man glanced toward me too. His expression changed instantly. Assessing. Careful. The same way security guards looked at strangers standing too close to celebrities. Riker moved fast after that. Go home, Noah. His voice stayed calm, but there was something underneath it now. Urgency maybe. I tightened my grip on my camera strap. Riker, what is going on? Nothing. You keep saying that. He looked exhausted suddenly. Not physically. Emotionally. Like he was balancing too many things at once. Just stop reading messages from strangers, he said quietly. And do not go anywhere alone at night this week. My heartbeat stumbled. Why? Riker opened his mouth like he wanted to answer. Then the SUV door opened behind him. Mr. Vaughn. The suited man said carefully. Your father is waiting. Father. My stomach dropped instantly. Because nobody at Westbrook ever talked about Riker's family. Ever. And judging by the way his jaw tightened, there was a reason for that. By Friday afternoon, the entire campus seemed determined to make my life unbearable. It started with a post on Westbrook Athletics Daily, one of those student-run sports accounts that treated basketball players like royalty and everyone else like background extras. Somebody had uploaded blurry photos of me standing beside Riker during practice with a caption that read, Film boy has the captain distracted before season opener. The comments were somehow worse than the original post. Desperate much. Riker looks miserable. Somebody get this clingy art major away from the team. I should have ignored it. Instead, I spent 20 straight minutes doom scrolling while lying face down across my bed like a man emotionally defeated by free wireless internet. Tyler walked in carrying laundry and immediately snatched my phone away. Absolutely not, he said. You are not reading comments written by people whose profile pictures are pickup trucks. They think I am stalking him. You literally avoid eye contact with cashiers. Nobody believes you are capable of stalking anybody. I groaned into a pillow. Unfortunately, the internet drama did not stay online. By evening, whispers followed me through campus again. People stared openly now whenever I crossed the quad. A couple girls outside the student center laughed the second I walked past. One guy actually called me captain's favorite loud enough for his friends to hear. I pretended not to notice, but embarrassment crawled under my skin all day anyway. Which was exactly why going to the basketball team party that night was objectively a terrible idea. You are absolutely going, Tyler announced while throwing a black sweater at my head. Why? Because hiding in our apartment while stress-eating cereal makes the rumors look worse. Counterpoint, I said weakly. What if I pass away instead? Tyler ignored me completely. An hour later, I stood outside one of the giant off-campus athlete houses questioning every decision I had ever made. Music pulsed through the walls hard enough to shake the front steps, while students crowded across the lawn holding red cups and speaking exclusively in loud drunk yelling. Expensive cars lined the street. Somebody had set up blue floodlights around the backyard pool because apparently normal college parties were not dramatic enough for Westbrook basketball players. If I disappear mysteriously tonight, I told Tyler quietly, delete my browser history. You say that every week. The second we walked inside, heads turned. Not everybody, but enough. Conversations dipped slightly around me before picking back up again. The atmosphere shifted in that subtle, ugly way people pretended not to notice while absolutely noticing everything. Tyler squeezed my shoulder once before disappearing toward the kitchen, traitor that he was. I stayed near the wall, trying very hard to become invisible. Across the crowded living room, Riker stood talking with teammates near the staircase. Dark hoodie, black jeans, one hand resting loosely around a water bottle while everybody else drank themselves unconscious around him. Even at a packed party, people naturally gave him space. Like orbiting too close might burn them alive. His eyes found me almost immediately. My pulse betrayed me on contact. Something unreadable crossed his expression before one of the assistant coaches suddenly appeared beside him. Older, well-dressed, serious enough to kill the party atmosphere within a 10-foot radius. Riker's posture stiffened instantly. They started arguing quietly near the stairs. Not loudly enough to hear words, but enough to feel tension crackling through the room anyway. There he is. I turned to find Jason Mercer approaching with 2 drinks and entirely too much confidence. You actually came. Against my better judgment. Jason grinned and handed me a soda. Relax. Half these people are too drunk to remember their own names. Before I could answer, another voice cut smoothly through the noise behind us. Actually, I remember his. The room shifted around me immediately. Claire Holloway stood near the kitchen entrance holding a glass of champagne and looking devastatingly polished. Tall boots. Designer coat. Sharp smile. I recognized her instantly from campus gossip accounts. Riker Vaughn's ex-girlfriend. Or almost girlfriend. Nobody ever seemed sure which. You are Noah, right? She asked sweetly. The documentary student. Every instinct in my body screamed danger. That is me. Claire's smile widened slightly. You have become very popular lately. Jason looked uncomfortable immediately. Claire. What? She asked innocently. I think it is cute. Riker usually ignores people entirely. The way she said his name made something twist unpleasantly in my chest. Claire. Jason repeated more firmly. She ignored him. Honestly, though, I expected somebody a little more. Her gaze drifted slowly over me. Interesting. Humiliation hit fast and hot. Around us, nearby conversations quieted subtly. People were listening now. Of course they were. This was Westbrook. Public embarrassment counted as recreational entertainment. I forced a tight smile. Good thing nobody asked for your approval then. Jason made a deeply stressed sound under his breath. Claire only tilted her head. Defensive too. Okay. Jason cut in quickly. Maybe everybody should calm down. But Claire stepped closer instead, lowering her voice just enough to sound crueler somehow. Do you actually think Riker likes having you around? Or are you just enjoying the attention? That one landed harder than I wanted it to. Because underneath the humiliation sat something worse. Fear. The ugly quiet fear that maybe she was right. Maybe I had imagined every strange look and careful gesture because I wanted them to mean something. Maybe Riker was only tolerating me because of the documentary assignment. Around us, the music still blasted through the house while strangers pretended not to stare directly at my social execution. I opened my mouth, fully prepared to embarrass myself further, when another voice spoke calmly from behind me. That is enough, Claire. Silence fell instantly around our little corner of the party. Riker stood there now. I had not even seen him cross the room. His expression remained perfectly composed, but something colder settled behind his eyes as he looked at Claire. I was joking, she said lightly. No, Riker replied. You were being rude. The room somehow got quieter. Claire blinked once like she genuinely had not expected him to challenge her publicly. Riker, you should leave him alone. His voice never rose. That somehow made it worse. Or better. I could not tell anymore. Claire laughed softly, but tension sharpened around the edges now. You are defending him? Riker's gaze flicked toward me briefly before returning to her. Yes. Just one word. Calm. Certain. Immediate. Something warm and terrifying bloomed low in my chest. Claire stared at him for another long second before scoffing lightly and walking away toward the kitchen without another word. The second she disappeared into the crowd, noise rushed back into the room around us. Conversations restarted. Music returned. Breathing became possible again. I stared at Riker while my heartbeat tripped over itself. You did not have to do that, I said quietly. Riker looked at me for so long my chest tightened. Yeah, he said softly. I did. After the party, everything changed in the worst possible way. Not publicly at first. Publicly, things somehow got better, which honestly should have been my first warning sign. By Saturday morning, half the campus had already seen videos of Riker defending me at the party. Somebody uploaded the clip to social media with dramatic background music like it was a scene from a streaming drama. The comments shifted overnight. Okay, wait. Why was that kind of romantic? Riker looked ready to ruin somebody for him. Captain Vaughn defending Film Boy was not on my bingo card. Tyler replayed the video 6 straight times over breakfast while grinning like a man watching reality television. The eye contact alone changed my brain chemistry, he announced. I buried my face in my coffee cup. Please stop talking. Noah. Tyler pointed at the screen dramatically. That man looked at you like you personally hung the moon. He was being polite. Tyler stared at me in exhausted disbelief. You are the least observant person alive. Unfortunately, his words stuck with me all weekend. Because after the party, Riker stopped pretending not to care. The difference was subtle enough that most people probably missed it. But I noticed. He texted me directly now instead of going through Coach Daniels for documentary scheduling. He waited for me after practice instead of leaving with the team immediately. Once, when rain started pouring across campus after evening drills, he silently held his umbrella over both of us while walking me toward the media building. The entire time, neither of us said much. The quiet between us no longer felt awkward, though. It felt dangerous in a softer way, like standing too close to the edge of something life-changing. And that terrified me, because Riker Vaughn still carried secrets around him like shadows. The black SUV kept appearing outside practices. Men in suits occasionally waited near the arena entrances pretending not to look like security detail. Once, I caught Coach Daniels arguing quietly with somebody on the phone about press exposure and family expectations, while Riker sat alone in the empty bleachers afterward looking so exhausted it physically hurt to see. None of it made sense. Basketball players did not normally travel with what looked suspiciously like bodyguards. Tuesday night finally broke me. Practice ended late after a brutal scrimmage before the season opener. Most of the team had already left by the time I finished packing camera equipment near the media table. Rain hammered against the arena windows while thunder rattled faintly overhead. The gym lights dimmed automatically section by section until only the court remained illuminated in soft gold. Riker sat alone on the front row bleachers staring down at his phone with his elbows resting on his knees. His hoodie sleeves were pushed up slightly, exposing tired hands and bruised knuckles from practice drills. For a second, he looked less like the untouchable king of campus and more like somebody carrying too much weight alone. My chest tightened before I could stop it. You okay? I asked quietly. Riker glanced up slowly. Something vulnerable flickered across his face so fast I almost thought I imagined it. Yeah, he was lying. I walked closer before my self-preservation instincts could intervene. You know you are terrible at pretending everything is fine, right? A soft breath escaped him that almost sounded like a laugh. You are one to talk. Fair point. Silence settled between us while rain drummed steadily outside. Then Riker's phone buzzed sharply in his hand. His entire posture changed instantly. Tension snapped back into place so fast it startled me. He stood immediately. I should go. But before he could move, another voice echoed through the nearly empty gym. There you are. I turned instinctively. A tall, older man walked down the bleacher stairs with the kind of cold, expensive presence that made entire rooms feel smaller. Dark coat, silver watch, controlled expression sharp enough to cut glass. I recognized him instantly from sports magazines and business articles. Adrian Vaughn, founder of Vaughn Global Holdings. billionaire investor, corporate monster, depending on which article you read. Riker's father. My stomach dropped. Adrian Vaughn's gaze landed on me immediately. Not curious. Evaluating. Like he was calculating my net worth and finding it disappointing. You did not mention company, he said smoothly to Riker. Riker stepped slightly in front of me before I even realized it. Noah works on the documentary. Adrian's eyes narrowed almost invisibly. The documentary. Something ugly curled in my stomach at the tone. Interesting timing. I frowned immediately. What does that mean? Neither of them answered fast enough. Which was answer enough already. Adrian adjusted the cuff of his coat calmly. You should know, he said to me directly, that my son has become quite talented at managing public narratives. The air in the gym changed instantly. Riker's expression hardened. Stop. But Adrian ignored him. The university board has concerns regarding recent rumors surrounding the basketball program. My heartbeat started climbing. What rumors? Adrian looked almost amused now. You really do not know. Riker moved sharply. Dad, too late. Adrian's gaze stayed fixed on me. The press has been circling Riker for months regarding his family obligations, endorsements, and future succession plans. Public attention has not exactly helped. Cold realization spread slowly through my chest. Succession plans. Vaughn Global Holdings. Security detail. Expensive rings hidden beneath hoodies. Corporate image management. My stomach twisted violently. Wait. I looked at Riker fully for the first time in what felt like forever. You are not just a basketball player. Riker went silent. Which, again, was answer enough. Adrian sighed lightly. Riker is the sole heir to Vaughn Global. My thoughts crashed into each other all at once. Billionaire heir. Corporate dynasty. National. Sports spotlight. Carefully controlled media image. And suddenly every strange interaction over the last 2 weeks rearranged itself into something uglier. The public defense at the party. The sudden attention online. The rumors. The cameras. Oh my God, I whispered. Riker stepped toward me immediately. Noah. I backed away before he could touch me. Hurt hit harder than embarrassment this time. Was any of this real? Riker's face changed instantly. What? The party. The messages. You suddenly protecting me everywhere. My throat tightened painfully. Was I just convenient? No, the answer came too fast. Too sharp. But anger was already boiling beneath my ribs now. You let me think people were attacking me because of some stupid coffee accident while your family was apparently treating campus like a public relations battlefield. I was trying to protect you. From what? I demanded. Your billionaire family? Rain thundered violently against the arena windows. Riker looked wrecked suddenly. Not angry. Worse. Guilty. Adrian Vaughn watched the entire exchange with detached calm, which somehow made everything hurt more. Because standing there under cold gym lights while Riker stared at me with that shattered expression, one awful realization settled heavily into my chest. I did not know him at all. I avoided Riker Vaughn for 4 straight days, which would have been easier if the entire campus was not apparently designed to torture me personally. His face was everywhere. Giant posters promoting the basketball season opener hung across the student center. Sports highlights played constantly on cafeteria televisions. Even random freshmen walking through campus wore jerseys with Vaughn stamped across their backs like he belonged to the university itself instead of existing as an actual human being. Meanwhile, my brain replayed the conversation in the arena on a permanent emotional loop. Sole heir to Vaughn Global. Public narratives. Family obligations. Every soft moment between us suddenly felt suspicious now. Every glance. Every carefully timed appearance. Every protective gesture. Had any of it actually been real? Or had I just accidentally become useful to somebody raised in a world where image mattered more than honesty? By Thursday night, I was exhausted enough to stop pretending I was fine. Rain poured over campus again in heavy silver sheets while I sat alone in the media lab, trying unsuccessfully to edit basketball footage without emotionally imploding every 5 minutes. The building was nearly empty. Just the hum of computers and distant thunder outside the windows. I rubbed both hands over my face and stared blankly at paused footage of Riker on the court. Even frozen mid-motion, he looked unfairly beautiful. Focused. Untouchable. The kind of person entire rooms naturally moved around. This is pathetic, I muttered to myself. You are arguing with video files now. My phone buzzed against the desk immediately afterward. Unknown number. My stomach dropped automatically. But instead of another anonymous message, only one sentence appeared. You skipped practice again. I stared at the screen. Then another message arrived, almost instantly. Please tell me you got home safe at least. Heat bloomed low in my chest before anger shoved it back down. I typed furiously. Stop texting me from fake numbers. 3 dots appeared immediately. I am not using a fake number. I frowned harder. Then another message came through. It is Riker. Against my better judgment, my pulse stumbled anyway. I locked the phone without answering. 5 minutes later, the lights in the media lab flickered once. Then somebody knocked softly against the open doorway. My entire body betrayed me before I even looked up. Riker stood there soaked from the rain, dark hoodie clinging slightly to his shoulders while water dripped from damp hair across his forehead. He looked exhausted. Not the polished, untouchable campus king version of exhausted either. Real exhausted. Human exhausted. Tyler said you were here, he said quietly. I immediately stood from the desk. You cannot just show up places. I know. His honesty threw me off balance instantly. Rain hammered against the windows behind him while silence stretched between us. God. Even angry, I still noticed everything about him. The tired shadows beneath his eyes. The tension sitting permanently in his shoulders lately. The way his hands flexed slightly like he was trying not to reach for me, which only made me angrier somehow. What do you want? I asked softly. Riker looked at me for a long second before answering. To explain. Okay. I crossed my arms tighter. Explain why your family apparently needs security teams to follow you around campus. He exhaled slowly through his nose. It is complicated. That is not an explanation. Another silence. Then Riker walked farther into the room and quietly closed the door behind him. The soft click echoed too loudly in the empty lab. My grandfather built Von Global from nothing, he said finally. My father turned it into something worse. I blinked slightly at that. Riker stared out the rain-streaked windows instead of at me now. Everything in my family is transactional. Reputation, relationships, public appearances. His jaw tightened. Even me. Something in his voice hurt to hear. Riker. He laughed once under his breath without humor. Do you know what my father said after my first championship game in high school? I stayed quiet. He told me winning was useful because investors like disciplined sons. My chest tightened painfully. Riker finally looked at me again then, and something raw sat openly in his expression now. Nobody in my family cares who I actually am, Noah. The room felt smaller suddenly. Warmer. More dangerous. I swallowed hard. Then why did you not tell me the truth? His answer came instantly this time. Because I liked you before any of this happened. My heartbeat stopped. Riker stepped closer carefully, like approaching something fragile enough to break apart in his hands. The coffee incident was not the first time I noticed you. My throat tightened. What? You sit outside the arts building every Tuesday afternoon editing footage on your laptop because the sunlight is better there. I stared at him speechlessly. You always buy vanilla cold brew, but complain it tastes burnt anyway. Another step closer. And when you get nervous, you pull your sweater sleeves over your hands without realizing it. Warmth rushed painfully into my chest. Riker, I did not protect you because of my family, he said quietly. I protected you because people started targeting you online after they noticed me looking at you. Rain thundered softly outside while my pulse spiraled completely out of control. The anonymous messages, I whispered slowly. Riker looked guilty immediately. I was trying to warn you. You scared me half to death. I know. His voice dropped softer. I am sorry. God. The sincerity in his face made anger suddenly feel impossible to hold properly, which terrified me more than anything. Riker rubbed tiredly at the back of his neck before speaking again. My father thinks every relationship is a weakness someone can exploit. His mouth twisted bitterly. I spent most of my life believing if people got too close, they would eventually leave once they saw how complicated everything was. Something cracked quietly inside my chest hearing that. Because beneath the headlines and expensive security and impossible family expectations, Riker suddenly looked horribly lonely. Not cold. Lonely. The kind of loneliness that settled into someone after years of being treated like an asset instead of a person. Thunder rolled softly outside again. Then Riker glanced toward the rain beyond the windows before pulling off his hoodie and holding it out toward me. You forgot your jacket, he said quietly. I blinked. Sitting beside my chair was the denim jacket I had left in the arena 2 nights ago during our argument. Dry now. Folded carefully. My chest hurt suddenly for reasons I could not explain. You kept it. Riker looked almost embarrassed. You said it was your favorite one. The warmth blooming through me felt dangerous now. Deep. Real. I hated how badly I wanted to believe him. Riker stepped closer one final time before stopping carefully within reach. You can be angry at me, he said softly. But none of this was fake. The rain kept falling outside while my heartbeat stumbled helplessly against my ribs. And standing there beneath cold fluorescent lights with Riker Vaughn looking at me like I mattered more than breathing, I realized the real problem was no longer whether I trusted him. It was that I wanted to. For exactly 36 hours after the media lab conversation, I let myself believe things might actually be okay, which, in retrospect, should have terrified me more. Because happiness at Westbrook always arrived right before disaster. Thursday night blurred into something soft and dangerously intimate in ways I could not stop thinking about. Riker walked me back to my apartment through cold rain, with his umbrella tilted almost entirely over me while his own shoulders got soaked anyway. He carried my camera bag without asking. When we stopped outside my building, neither of us moved for several long seconds. Streetlights reflected gold against wet pavement, while rain tapped quietly against the umbrella above us. You should sleep, Riker said softly. You look exhausted. You say that like you are not surviving entirely on caffeine and unresolved emotional trauma. A real laugh escaped him then. Low, warm, beautiful enough to physically hurt. God help me, I smiled back automatically. Riker looked at me for a second too long after that. The kind of look that made the entire world narrow dangerously around the two of us. Noah, he said quietly. My pulse stumbled immediately. But before he could finish, his phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. The moment shattered. Riker's expression closed instantly after reading the screen. I have to go. Disappointment flickered through me before I could hide it. Everything okay? Riker hesitated. Yeah. Another lie. But softer this time. Like he wanted to tell me the truth, and simply did not know how. Before leaving, he reached out slowly and brushed rainwater gently away from my cheek with his thumb. Barely there. One careful touch. Then he stepped back immediately like he regretted wanting to do it at all. Good night, Noah. I stood there long after he disappeared into the rain, which was exactly why Friday morning destroyed me so completely. It started during breakfast. Tyler nearly dropped his phone directly into his cereal while staring at the screen in horror. Noah, he said slowly. Tell me this is fake. My stomach tightened instantly. What? He turned the phone toward me. Every ounce of warmth left my body at once. Westbrook basketball air-caught staging relationship for media image. Below the headline sat multiple photos of me and Riker together. The party. Practice footage. Him walking me home in the rain. Him touching my face outside my apartment building last night. My chest tightened painfully. But then I saw the screenshots underneath. Fake text conversations. Edited messages. One image showed a conversation supposedly between me and somebody named Caleb. Easy money. Billionaire athletes are desperate for relatable romance stories. Another message followed underneath. Once I get close enough to Vaughn, this documentary is going viral. My vision blurred instantly. I never said this. Tyler already looked furious. I know. But online, nobody else did. Comments flooded every sports account on campus. Knew that Art Kid was using him. Riker got played by a clout chaser. Somebody kicked this manipulative psycho off campus. Worse than the comments were the screenshots themselves because they looked horrifyingly real. My name. My profile picture. Fake messages carefully designed to make me look calculating and cruel. My hands started shaking. Oh my God. Tyler grabbed his jacket immediately. We are finding Riker right now. By the time we reached campus, the entire university already knew. Students openly stared as I crossed the quad. Some whispered. Others did not bother whispering at all. One guy muttered "gold digger" loudly enough for me to hear. Another laughed and said, "Guess the captain finally got scammed." Humiliation crawled through my skin so violently I thought I might actually throw up. Every awful insecurity I had tried suppressing exploded back to life at once. Maybe Claire had been right all along. Maybe everybody already believed I did not belong near someone like Riker. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications I was too terrified to open. Then another alert appeared. Emergency press conference. Westbrook Athletics Center. Noon. My heartbeat dropped straight into my stomach. Tyler looked equally horrified beside me. That cannot be good. No, it definitely could not. The athletics center overflowed with students by the time we arrived. Cameras crowded near the front entrance while reporters pushed microphones toward security guards trying desperately to maintain order. Basketball players stood near the lobby looking stressed enough to start fires with eye contact alone. The second Marcus spotted me, his face fell. Noah. The pity in his voice almost hurt worse than the rumors. Where's Riker? I asked immediately. Marcus hesitated just long enough to terrify me. Inside, something cracked quietly inside my chest. Because suddenly I understood exactly what this press conference was probably going to be. Damage control. Public distancing. The billionaire heir separating himself from the embarrassing scandal before it hurt his career. Of course. Why had I ever expected anything else? Cameras flashed violently near the front stage as athletic department staff organized microphones. Then movement rippled through the crowd. Riker entered from a side hallway wearing a black coat and the coldest expression I had ever seen on him. The room instantly exploded with noise. Questions flew from every direction. Riker, are the leaked messages real? Were you manipulated by Noah Bennett? Did the relationship begin as publicity? Riker ignored all of them while security pushed him toward the front podium. My pulse pounded violently against my ribs. He still had not looked at me once. Not once. Panic curled cold and sharp through my chest. Tyler grabbed my arm quietly. Noah. But I could barely hear him anymore. Because standing 20 feet away beneath brutal camera lights, Riker Vaughn finally lifted his eyes toward me across the crowded room. And for one horrible, endless second, he said absolutely nothing. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Long enough for my stomach to drop. Long enough for every terrible fear inside me to bloom into something cold and unbearable. Long enough for the entire crowded athletic center to start murmuring like sharks smelling blood in the water. Riker stood beneath the brutal white press lights with one hand resting against the podium while cameras flashed endlessly around him. His expression remained unreadable from across the room. Controlled, calm, untouchable, and for one horrible moment, I thought he was going to let me drown. Then Riker finally spoke. Those messages are fake. The room froze instantly. Reporters immediately started shouting over each other again. Can you confirm that? Do you have evidence? Was Noah Bennett involved at all? Riker did not even glance toward the reporters. His eyes stayed locked on me across the crowd instead. Noah had nothing to do with this. My breath caught painfully in my chest. The certainty in his voice hit harder than shouting ever could have. One reporter pushed forward aggressively. Then why would someone fabricate an entire relationship scandal around the two of you? Riker's jaw tightened slightly. Because people pay attention to my life. Another flash exploded across the room. Are you denying the relationship itself? The question landed like a grenade. The crowd went still again. Somewhere beside me, Tyler whispered, "Oh my God." Riker finally looked away from me then. Not toward the reporters. Toward the back entrance of the athletic center where several university board members now stood watching nervously beside Adrian Vaughn himself. The temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. Riker straightened slowly at the podium. For the last 2 years, he said calmly, my family has employed a private media consulting firm to monitor online discussions involving Vaughn Global and my athletic career. My pulse stumbled hard. Murmurs spread rapidly through the room. One reporter blinked in surprise. You monitored students? No, Riker's voice sharpened slightly. My father monitored threats. Adrian Vaughn's expression hardened instantly near the back wall. Riker ignored him completely. 3 weeks ago, someone from that firm began manufacturing false narratives involving Noah Bennett after campus accounts noticed me spending time with him. The room exploded again. Questions flew everywhere. Cameras flashed violently. Who authorized that? Are you saying this was orchestrated? Did Vaughn Global target a student? Riker remained terrifyingly calm through all of it. This morning, my legal team confirmed that the leaked screenshots were fabricated using edited metadata and cloned messaging software. Another wave of noise crashed through the room. My head spun trying to process everything at once. Wait, one reporter interrupted loudly. You hired a legal team overnight? No, Riker replied coldly. I fired one. Even the reporters went quiet after that. Across the room, Adrian Vaughn looked furious enough to crack glass. But Riker did not look at him once. Instead, he stepped away from the podium entirely and walked directly into the crowd. Toward me. The entire room shifted around him automatically. Cameras turned. Students moved aside. Nobody breathed normally anymore. My heart hammered violently while Riker crossed the distance between us under flashing lights and whispered conversations. He stopped directly in front of me. Close enough that I could see exhaustion carved beneath his eyes. Close enough that I noticed his hands shaking slightly for the first time since I met him. Noah, he said softly. Every camera in the room pointed at us now. I could barely think straight. You should not be doing this, I whispered back. Riker's expression broke slightly around the edges then. Vulnerable. Real. I know. The honesty in his voice nearly destroyed me. One reporter shouted from somewhere behind us. Riker, are you saying the relationship is real? The room held its breath collectively. Riker looked at me for one long, terrifying second before answering. At first, he said quietly, I thought keeping Noah close would make it easier to protect him from all this. My chest tightened painfully. Around us, cameras clicked nonstop. Nobody moved. But somewhere along the way, Riker continued softly, still looking only at me. It stopped feeling like something I was managing. My pulse stumbled helplessly. It started feeling real. The crowd erupted instantly. Questions. Shouting. Camera flashes bright enough to blind somebody. But all I could hear was Riker's voice. Calm and unshaking despite the chaos exploding around us. Noah never used me, he said firmly, louder now so the entire room could hear. If anything, I am the one who failed him. My throat tightened unexpectedly. Riker finally reached for me then. Slowly, carefully, like he was still afraid I might pull away. His fingers wrapped gently around my wrist in front of the entire university. Warm, steady, real. The room practically detonated. Riker Vaughn is publicly holding his hand. Somebody whispered somewhere behind us. Another camera flash exploded across my vision. I should have panicked. Instead, warmth crashed through me so hard it almost hurt. Because Riker was choosing me. Publicly. Deliberately. In front of reporters and students, and his furious billionaire father standing 20 feet away. Adrian Vaughn stepped forward sharply. Riker. The warning in his voice sliced clean through the noise. Riker did not even look at him. I am done letting other people decide what parts of my life are acceptable. The room went dead silent again. Adrian's expression darkened dangerously. Think carefully about what you are doing. Riker finally turned then. Calm. Cold. Unmovable. I have spent 22 years thinking carefully. His voice stayed perfectly level. And I am tired. Something in the way he said it cracked straight through my chest. Because suddenly I understood. This was not just about me. This was years of pressure and control and loneliness finally collapsing all at once beneath bright camera lights. Riker looked back at me after that, softer now, almost uncertain for the first time since I met him. I know I hurt you, he said quietly. But none of this was fake to me. My heartbeat felt dangerously unsteady. Around us, the athletics center remained frozen in collective shock, while camera flashes painted gold and white across Riker's face. Somewhere near the back, students had already started recording everything for social media. By morning, the entire internet would probably know exactly what happened here. But standing in the middle of the chaos with Riker's hand wrapped carefully around mine, while he looked at me like losing me would ruin him, none of that seemed to matter anymore. Then Riker lifted our joined hands slightly in front of every camera in the room and said the words that shattered the entire university completely. If someone needs to blame somebody, he said calmly, blame me. I am the one who fell first. The internet exploded before sunset. By midnight, clips from the athletic center had spread across every social media platform imaginable. Students replayed the moment Riker held my hand like it was the final scene of a championship movie. Sports accounts argued about whether his public confession would destroy his draft prospects or somehow make him even more famous. Westbrook University itself released 3 separate statements within 6 hours trying to contain the chaos. None of it worked. But for the first time since this entire disaster started, I stopped caring what strangers thought. Mostly because Riker refused to let me go long enough to spiral properly. The second the press conference ended, security practically had to drag reporters away from us while cameras flashed hard enough to leave spots in my vision. Through all of it, Riker stayed beside me. Calm. Solid. One hand warm against the small of my back, guiding me carefully through the crowd like he instinctively knew exactly how overwhelmed I was becoming. Outside the athletics center, cold evening air hit my face sharply while rain clouds drifted low across campus. Students crowded near the steps hoping for more drama. But the second Riker appeared beside me, conversations quieted instantly. Not because he looked angry. Worse, he looked certain. And apparently certainty from Riker Vaughn terrified people more than shouting ever could. Tyler stood near the curb, already looking emotional. I knew it, he announced immediately. Nobody looks at someone like that for publicity. Tyler, I warned weakly. He ignored me completely and pointed dramatically at Riker. You made my best friend cry for 3 straight days. I still have not forgiven you. Riker actually looked guilty. Fair. I blinked in surprise. Tyler blinked too. Then he narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Okay, that was annoyingly sincere. Somehow, against all logic, I laughed. A real laugh. The tension crushing my ribs for days finally loosened slightly. Riker looked at me immediately after the sound escaped. God, the expression on his face nearly ruined me all over again. Relief. Pure relief. Like, hearing me laugh again mattered more than the disaster still unfolding around us. A black SUV waited quietly near the curb beneath glowing streetlights. One of the suited security men opened the back door automatically, but Riker did not move right away. Instead, he turned toward me fully while cold wind tugged softly through his damp dark hair. Will you come with me? He asked quietly. My pulse stumbled instantly. Tyler made a tiny horrified noise beside me like he had accidentally wandered into a romance novel against his will. Riker, I said softly, your entire life is exploding right now. Yeah. His mouth twitched slightly. Which is exactly why I do not want to be alone tonight. Something warm cracked open quietly inside my chest. The honesty in his voice still startled me every time. 30 minutes later, I sat barefoot on the couch inside the penthouse apartment Riker apparently kept near downtown Chicago for games and media appearances, which honestly sounded fake even inside my own head. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked rain-soaked city lights, while soft jazz played quietly somewhere through hidden speakers. The entire apartment felt expensive in that understated, terrifying billionaire way where everything probably cost more than my tuition. And yet somehow, the first thing Riker did after we walked inside was hand me one of his giant hoodies before disappearing into the kitchen to make hot chocolate. This is insane, I muttered quietly to myself while staring around the penthouse. Riker returned carrying 2 mugs. The apartment. Your life. He handed me a mug carefully before sitting beside me on the couch. Not too close. Just enough that warmth radiated softly between us anyway. Rain tapped quietly against the massive windows overlooking the city. I hate most of it, Riker admitted after a long silence. I looked at him over the rim of my mug. The basketball. No, his expression softened slightly. Basketball is the only thing that ever felt like mine. Something painful twisted through me hearing that. Riker stared down at his hands quietly for another second before reaching into his pocket. I want to show you something. He pulled out the silver ring I had seen hidden beneath his shirt weeks ago. Up close, the engraved crest looked older than I expected. Sharp edges worn slightly smooth with time. Every firstborn Von son wears this after turning 18, Riker explained softly. My grandfather called it a symbol of responsibility. His mouth twisted faintly. Honestly, it mostly feels like ownership. I swallowed quietly. Riker. But then he turned toward me fully and placed the ring carefully on the coffee table between us instead. My heartbeat stuttered immediately. I am done letting my family decide what parts of me belong to them, he said softly, including who I care about. The city lights blurred slightly beyond the windows while my pulse spiraled completely out of control again. You barely know me, I whispered. Riker looked almost offended by that. Noah, I know you alphabetize your movie collection when you are stressed. I know you cry at dog commercials, but pretend you have allergies afterward. I know you hate thunderstorms unless you are editing late at night, because rain helps you focus. His voice softened further. And I know I have not stopped thinking about you since the first time you smiled at me outside the arts building 3 months ago. My chest physically hurt hearing that, because suddenly every strange look and careful gesture and impossible moment rearranged itself into something heartbreakingly simple. He had noticed me long before I ever noticed him back. Riker reached for my hand slowly after that. Careful, like he was still giving me the chance to pull away. I did not. His fingers threaded gently through mine, while warm city light reflected softly across his face. I do not want fake anymore, he admitted quietly. Not with you. Emotion climbed painfully into my throat. Then what do you want? Riker looked at me for a long second before answering. Honest. Certain. Terrifyingly real. You, he said softly. If you will still have me. Somewhere beyond the windows, Chicago glowed gold beneath the rain, while the world outside kept spinning endlessly forward. But sitting there beside Riker Vaughn with his hand wrapped around mine and his walls, finally lowered completely, I realized something quietly beautiful. The boy everyone thought would destroy me had become the safest place I had ever